And welcome to another match preview here on my channel, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jack Ward to talk all things Oxford. So first of all, how are you doing, Jack? And with this January transfer window, what have you made of the business so far?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's been busy. It's been really, really busy. For Birmingham and Oxford, really. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of work with Birmingham and the business they've been doing over the course of the winter window. And you've been active. You've been spending a bit of cash, which I think we all expected. But yeah, it's been a jam-packed January. So much. I think we get so involved in the transfer window, and we forget there's also loads of games that we've got to be playing as well. So yeah, there's a game on Saturday. The window doesn't close until Monday, so we are well and truly in the thick of it. Before we know it, we'll be in the run into the season. So there's a lot going on, mate. There's a lot going on.
Exactly, and that's the championship for you, isn't it? And with the transfer activity that Birmingham have done in the window, you've made some great videos speaking about what they serve for the team and where those players could slot in. Out of the signings that we've made so far, is there one that stands out for you in particular that excites you the most?
To be honest, I think there is. I think that the two that really stand out are probably Solis and Priska, to be honest. And that might surprise people because I think Vicente is, I think, deemed the star signing, you'd probably say, in terms of the money spent. And that doesn't always translate into who's the best player, different valuations that can fluctuate. I think Priska excites me most, not just for the now, but for the future in terms of what I think he can grow into. I think clearly there is going to be an adjustment period there. He's a very, very talented player. He's strong, but even being strong, that physicality is completely different in the championship compared to what it is um, in Norway. So there's always going to be that change in adjustment, and that has to take time. So in terms of what he can bring in the next couple of years, and him still being young, I think is a massive benefit for you. Um, and Solis is the midfielder I think you've been missing this season in terms of progression, in terms of that I guess strength in the way that he carries the ball up the pitch. I think in Peck and in Doyle, you've got two sort of really good ball players. You've got players that are sort of technically a lot more gifted than most midfielders in this league. But I think what they always and have lacked at points this season, especially away from home, when maybe you're not having sort of 60-70% of the ball, is that ability to get the ball up the pitch through driving with it. I think Solis has got that build and that bulk to be able to do that. So those two stand out. I think Osman brings a lot of pace and directness to the way that you transition up the pitch in the wide areas. Vicente gives you that too, a bit more I guess a traditional winger. I think I've described him as quite often. And Wagner, we've sort of seen more of him because he joined at the start of the window, and he's looked really good. And you needed a left back, you didn't really have a left back, so that makes sense as well. But yeah, if I had to pick two, I've sort of gone through all of them there. I apologize, but if I had to pick two, I'd probably go with Solis and Priska in terms of which ones excite me the most.
Because I feel like the age profile of the players that we've signed as well has been quite interesting because you get them in like the early 20s, mid 20s, and I feel like they're signings for the next 2, 3 years to come as well as this season, obviously, because if you're spending the amount of money that what we are, then you expect to kick on. And you've said in your videos about, the expectations surrounding Birmingham, and you feel that if we don't get top six this season, then Chris Davis's job's under threat. So with this stance and sort of with some of the window still left to go, is there any more signings that you think that Birmingham could make that could really make them top six contenders? Because at the moment we are still quite a bit off it. I know the points aren't exactly a big amount, but there's a load of teams in between us and the top six. So what signings do you think we could still make to make us real promotion contenders?
To be honest, I don't think there is a whole lot more. I don't think there is. I think we are now in a point, and if I'm being totally frank with you, and this is sort of taking away the fact that we haven't got, as Oxford United, the funds to spend £7 million on a winger and six, whatever it may be, on a striker, etc. But I think you have now got the ingredients. I think if you were being a bit more pushy, you could say a left-sided centre back. I think that's probably been the noise from a lot of Birmingham fans. Can you bring in another centre back to to cover that position? But I think if we're being really honest, that squad now does have the aspects to really push and be in the top six. I think Chris Davis has now got himself into a position which, and I was saying this discussion on another Birmingham podcast last night, is as managers, they always want the best players. They always want more players. They always want to bring in the the best possible addition they can. But ultimately, what Chris Davis has now got himself into is almost a no excuse zone where I think there isn't much maneuver. I don't think he can argue that they're lacking anything. They're far too one dimensional, I think, in the first half of the season before January. And now he's got a variety to his squad. He can be, quick in transition. He's got a focal point up front in Priska. Maybe not ready right now to make a 100% impact, but certainly room to develop. In Vicente, you're spending a lot of money on a ready-made 26-year-old. So I'll be honest, yep, one position, maybe a centre back for cover. But in terms of the players that you have brought in so far, I think you've now got enough to I think really give it a go. And like you say, that the points are possible. So I think Chris Davis is, as I did say in the video, as you just said there, I think he is now in a place where it could be top six or bust. That might be a bit dramatic, but I think he's certainly got the players to do that.
Because I feel like fans on social media have been kind of divided about it because I'm very much of the opinion of if you're a Birmingham fan and seen what we've seen over the last 10 years, there's been so much turbulence. So you just kind of want one manager to be the guy that's going to take us there. And like, obviously, with the success that we had in League One last season, you just want that bit of stability and continuity. But I completely understand, like, from an outside perspective, seeing what has happened with Birmingham and all the noise around them and the predictions at the start of the season, that you would expect us to be in the top six. And I feel like there is certainly that side to it. But then there's also the side to it of, I feel like we'll get there eventually. It's one of those ones where we are heading in the right direction. Obviously, the away form is something that we do have to sort out. And with Oxford being our next opponents, what have you made so far of your January? Because it's been so hectic on your front with a new manager in Matt Bloomfield, some new January signings joining as well. So what do you make of the shape of Oxford?
I think we've done really well, to be honest, Sam. I think we've done well. I think we brought in a different profile to what we saw in the summer, and that was, like you say, with a different manager. That was with Gary Rowett, who did a really good job in keeping us in the league last season. He definitely deserved a shot in giving us a full season, and we knew that the ambition, and again, there's a fine line between expectation and ambition. Like I've always said, and like I've said before, it's going to take a long time. Oxford are going to have to be in the Championship for a long time before we can start saying we expect to be in the Championship, and that becomes an expectation. I think that still is a hope and an ambition. As fans, we live off hope. So yeah, I hope we do stay up. But and Gary Rat deserved that shot because he came in last season and he did do that. This season it didn't work out. I think there were issues in pre-season. It didn't felt like the preparation was there, and that wasn't totally on Gary. That was on the football club. I think that there were clearly players that we targeted. I think we've actually signed in this window that we couldn't sign in the summer, which I think is quite interesting. And I think what we've done in this window is we've realised that one, if we are going to build a new stadium, which is a bit more Oxford related, but I think the point is there. If we are going to build a new stadium, which we desperately need to do, we need to, it would be nice to have that stadium in the Championship, and financially, it would make a lot more sense to have that in the Championship. So I don't think that's the sole reason why we've spent a bit more than we thought we would, but I think that definitely does play a factor. And also the specific type of player we've signed, I think, are players that, if we do go down, we've got assets and we've also got players that are going to be ready made for League One at a good age. And that's important too. I think I much prefer that direction. I think if we'd have gone into this window and gone, right, we need Championship experience, we need players that are maybe in their 28, 29, 30 plus, then if you do get relegated, you've got a double blow, because then you've got a lot of players at that age that are probably going to be on big contracts in League One. And we know how difficult that league is. So I think what we've done is we've targeted players that can impact the Championship now, and a lot of those players already have looked like they can do that. And if we do still get relegated, obviously not ideal, but you've got players that are of a good age that we can either sell for profit, or we can sort of make them into sort of top League One players who have just had 6 months experience and exposure to the Championship. And that's what we've signed. If we look at Miles Harris, for example, he's a good age. McDonald's been phenomenal for Mansfield. We brought him off Nottingham Forest. He's already looked really good in his first game. He's only 21. So again, you're signing players in sort of that first half of their 20s that can be good now, could keep us in the league. But if we go down, then you've either got, like I said, profit, or you've got some really, really good League One players that should put us in a good spot to maybe get out of the league. But I've liked it. I think it's been ambitious. I think it's been good. And that squad needed a refresh, which I think has been done with the help of Matt Bloomfield too, giving us a bit of a new lease of life, really. I think that's what he's done most importantly.
Because I feel like what you said about the players can also be applied to the manager, where it's a bit of a sort of project appointment. Because with Rowett, as you said, he kept you in the league last season, so you felt entitled then to keep him on for the following season. But I feel like with Bloomfield, you can certainly now build towards something. And even if you do get relegated, he'd be certainly a man to take you back up to the Championship. And I feel like with his tenure at Luton, he would have learnt some things about, okay, what can I do differently for next time? And then apply this now to his role at Oxford. Because when Rowett was sacked, it was a bit of a situation where outside media were going, oh, if you want someone to keep you in the Championship, then it's Gary Rowett. But obviously with Birmingham, we've had him in charge twice, and the second time he came in, he didn't manage to keep us in the Championship. So it's not like a guaranteed, thing that if Rowett's there, then you're going to stay up. So I feel like with Bloomfield, it is a clever appointment, and as you said, with the transfer window, it's both those things aligning to build for now and also the future.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if easily, and the noise was Oxford, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to stay in the league? If so, sacking someone, like you say, he's not got a 100% record, but he's got a very good record of keeping teams in this league and then also progressing them. But I think we realised that I think we lost our way a little bit. I think in the first, in when we had Des Buckingham, who was the manager that got us into the league in the first place, there was a clear way of how we were trying to do things. Or the direction was there. Before that, we had Liam Manning, who left us for Bristol City. That and he was good for us. I know he's had a bit of a strange last few years as a manager, but he was great for us, and he left us in a unfortunate position with the fact he just walked to Bristol City in the Championship, but we were in a good place. And then when we went with Gary Rowett, it was like, okay, we know and everybody knew the direction was clearly shifting, and it was we need to stay in this league. And then like you say, you can't then make a change because he's kept us in the league. And also uh, it, at times it really wasn't as bad. I think this season we maybe pivoted a bit too early into, I think he maybe heard a bit more about, are you going to open up a little bit? Are we going to play a little bit more front footed? Are we going to be a little bit more brave? I think he then tried to do that, and he said this himself. He tried to be a bit more expansive, and then when we lost games playing in that way, it was like almost, look, I've shown you that this isn't going to work. We're now going to totally shut up shop and go back to what I think's best. And then it sort of turned into a case of, we were losing games quite narrowly, but not really laying a glove on oppositions. But if we took the lead, we'd sit back and invite pressure. And we haven't got the players to invite pressure. We haven't got the defenders in the squad to sort of withstand pressure from most teams in the league. So a change had to be made. I personally believe it had to be made. I think we've been proven in those first three games that Matt Bloomfield has given us a bit of a boost, and he sort of tried to build it. It's the silly things like building a bit more of a connection with the fans, being a bit more involved with us, sort of getting us back on the journey. And we can now sort of see that the recruitment is in line with the new manager, and there is a feeling of, I think we are now back to where we wanted to be, and that might still be potentially relegation, but the understanding of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to operate, I think, is a lot more clear. Which I think as fans, we want to buy into a direction. We want to buy into sort of knowing where your club is going. I feel like, look, it's only been three games he's been here, but I think just the profile of him and the guy that he is, I think we are probably back on that horse, if you like.
Because I saw the celebrations against Leicester of Bloomfield, where he
Yeah.
goes over to the fans and he's so animated. And as you said, he's someone that's trying to now bridge that gap between the sort of fans and the players and that. And with this game being at your ground, you've not got the best record at home. It's 21st in the league, but then again, we've not got the best away record. So it could easily cancel each other out. But I feel like from this game, as opposed to the St Andrews one, you're going to have a bit more of a go at us, because that game at St Andrews at the start of the season, it did feel like a bit of a League One game for us, because it was one of those ones where we've got to break down the team, and then once we get our goal, then we're kind of comfortable with it. But I feel like this game at the Kassam Stadium is going to be a lot tougher.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope that we make it more of a game. I think you're right. It felt like that felt a bit like that probably the game at St Andrews was a bit of a turning point anyway. I think I say that. I think we all knew that when you go to a place like Birmingham, you're going to have to be defensively in a low block and and soak up pressure. We're never going to come at Birmingham and try and have 75% possession against you, because that would be impossible, because you've got better players. But I think, yeah, you're right. I think it was a case of we had, I think, probably about two chances in that game, and you probably should have scored three or four. So 1-0 probably flattered us a little bit. And hopefully in this game, I think we do see a bit of that. I think we're going to be a bit more aggressive in the press. I think we're going to sort of take the game to you, and that's not about having more of the ball, and it's a lot more about sort of, can we get in your face a little bit? Can we make it hard work for you? Can we make it challenging? Are we going to test you a bit more? You're going to have to work a little bit more for your chances. And it's just little things like that. And then in terms of scoring goals, it's going to be about, right, if you're going to play high up the pitch, are you going to have a lot more of the ball? Can we hit you on the break? Have we got the pace to hit you on the break? That's going to be the way that we do things. I believe. I mean, to be honest, against Leicester, I didn't really know how we were going to approach that game. I know Leicester haven't been great, but I didn't know how we were going to get anything from that game, let alone win it, and we did. And that's something that I think I said last night. And I've seen someone say it before, so I won't I'm not going to take credit for the actual comment that I saw. I think it was another Oxford United fan that said it. I think if we've got any chance of staying in this league, it's going to be about us sort of playing the reality of the opposition, not we think the opposition's going to be. And what I mean by that is we sort of go into a game against Leicester and you go, newly relegated side, away from home, don't know how this is going to go. But if you play the reality of Leicester, they're a poor side. They're not a brilliant side whatsoever. They sacked their manager after we beat them. And they look like a side that were worse than Oxford United and we deserve to win the game. I think our last three wins have been against the sides that got relegated: Ipswich, Southampton, and Leicester. Again, you've got to play the games as they are in a weird way. And Birmingham's the same. You've got all of the phenomenal players, and you have got such a talented squad, and you're a very well supported football club. Everything about Birmingham should be feared, really, in the Championship. But on the football pitch, the results and the away form speaks for itself. You're you're not in your best place. So if we approach it in that way, that's going to be the way that we get something from the game. So every game that Oxford United play is going to be a challenge, mate. Yeah, that's just the way that it is. And I think you can say that for yourself as well, even being a side that expect to be up there. There is absolutely no easy guarantee game in this division.
No, absolutely not. I feel like both teams are in a situation where they've got clear goals for the now until the end of the season. It's just about kicking on and finding that run of form. And I want to ask you as well about two former Birmingham players that are in the Oxford team at the moment. So Davis and Dembele. Because with
Yeah.
us, from a Birmingham perspective, we can't see how Davis isn't like playing a lot of games for you and like really being a mainstay. Because for us, I feel like we've struggled to replace him in the championships, but he can't really play a game at the moment for Oxford. And then you've got Dembele on the wing, who did show promise for us this season. We got relegated, but just because of the sheer amount of managers that we had, no one ever really put his arm around him and was just like, okay, you're my winger. It was very much he was in the team and then out the team. So with those two guys, how's it gone for them at Oxford?
I think, yeah, I think two very, very different situations. I think with Davis, it was a case of we brought him in on loan, and I was impressed by what he did at Birmingham. To be honest, last season, I think there was a lot of Rangers fans don't rate him. I think that's fair to say. Um, and you're right, he hasn't played sort of consistently week in, week out. In a back four, he struggles to play because we've got Kieran Brown, who I think is a bit of well, he is a fan favourite. He's also a really strong centre back for us, really, really good. And then you've got an idea next to him, you've got Hellick, who's a right sided centre back, and he hasn't looked anywhere near as good this season. So you sort of you could put Davis in there, but then you've got two left footers at the back, and the balance, that's a bit of an issue. So then we've ended up playing Sam Long at centre back and a back four, and he's looked good, but again, he's not aerially as dominant. So the back four, Davis is a struggle, really, because we've got two good left-sided centre-backs. We're struggling on the right. In a back three, which is where he played against Leicester, and he has played the majority of his time for Oxford, he's looked really, really good. And I expect him to play on Saturday if he's fit. And that's been another thing. He's sort of had little injuries because he's been in and out of games. His fitness has struggled to sort of deal with the in and out of the demands of the Championship, and in the FA Cup he played as well. So in the back three, I think Davis played. I think he's, like I said, a really good ball player, really strong in the air, physically really dominant. And I would like to see more of him. It's just how he fits in with the shape and how we set up. I think in a back three, yeah, I think we've got a really good centre back on our hands. And you know what? I think because of his performance against Leicester and the way that we did play a three in that game, I think you might see a bit of a reunion. I think I'd be surprised if he's available that he doesn't play against Birmingham on Saturday.
And with Dembele as well, like another player that showed promise for
Yeah.
Birmingham, but not quite sort of hit the ground running. I feel like with Dembele at the start of the season under John Eustace, like he was just superb, and I thought like this is going to be
Yeah.
one of our best signings in the last few years. But then kind of just petered away, and I saw on social media as well he was quite happy when Gary Rowett got the sack.
Yeah, there was an Instagram post, I believe. Yeah, Dembele's a really tricky one. Really, really tricky one. Full of skill, full of talent. I do think there is talent in there. Um, but he's just really struggled to hit the ground running at Oxford. Really, really struggled. I think he is a really difficult player for a manager to sort of play in a weird way. I think there is a bit of that. I think has he been given a fair run of games? Maybe not. But at the same time, if you don't perform and you maybe get 2 games on the bounce and you don't perform, you're not going to stay in that side because we're not in a position where we can sort of just let players sort of play and allow them to maybe become good. We have to make changes. We have to find other ways of being effective. And Dembele, he's one of them where he could do something unbelievable. He'll win you some brilliant fouls. He'd also try and take on a defender or an opposition player on the edge of your box, and you just sat there thinking, "What on earth are you doing?" And in the final third, he might have 30 attempts to beat his man, and he might do it once, and it'll be great. But then he'll sort of not impact the game 29 times in those take-ons, and you're like, again, we need a bit more. We need a bit more from you, mate. So he's frustrated, and I think the issue we've got at the moment is I think there are probably better players that are making more of an impact at this moment in time. And if his goal contribution numbers, I think he's got 3 goal contribution numbers in a year and a half, and for a wide player that just isn't good enough. We need more from that. We need more assists. Every goal and every assist is absolutely critical for Oxford. So if you're a wide player and an attacking player, and you can only pick up, I think it's like 3 in 50 odd games. I could be off there, but I imagine it's around that 30, 40 games maybe in total, then that just isn't going to cut it. The issue we've got is he's 30, and I thought he was younger than that. He's 30. I didn't realize that he is actually sort of not coming to the end of his career, but he's certainly not in his sort of younger primer era, you'd say. And he's not on a small wage either. So yeah, it's a tough one, really. I think if we had it our way, we probably try and replace or try and offload him in this window. Um, but it's hard because you've got someone on a decent whack, and where's he going to want to go? That's the tricky thing. But he's fun, he's talented, but he doesn't impact enough games, and we need impact, and we need impact now. We can't really wait around for individuals, to be honest.
And so with all of that being said, how do you see the game panning out on Saturday? Because I feel like with Birmingham, we could sort of go to the Kassam and try and play that possession football, but as you said, you're just going to
Mm.
be trying setting traps and look for the counter attack. So I feel like it's a really interesting dilemma that could play out.
Yeah, I think like I was saying last night, if in terms of this, I've done a few of these previews, and I think you've all caught me at the right time. You've caught Oxford fans at the right time, really. If you'd have asked us this a couple of weeks ago before the last 3, I think the conversation would be very different, and I think I'd be a lot more glass half empty than I am glass half full at the moment. Um, I've seen promise in those 3 games, but I'm also very very wary of what you can offer. And I've said this, and there isn't any science to prove this, but you have to come good away from home eventually, and you will have to kick on. The quality just has to eventually shine through. Um, look at the teams in the top 6 at the moment, like Hull City, teams like that who have been so consistently brilliant across the course of the season. Millwall too have been up there and done really well. You've got, on paper, and football isn't played on paper, but in terms of the kind of players you've now got, you should be reaching those levels. And that is obviously a big threat. But that contradicts what I said earlier about playing the reality and playing what we think Birmingham have got. So how do I think it's going to play out? I think we've almost said it. I think you're going to try and I expect you to try and take the game to us in the way that you do with plenty of the ball. And I expect us to try and be in your face, press, try and take it off those midfield players that come looking for the ball. Maybe try and play, or push you high up and don't let you play through the thirds. I think if we give you too much room, you're going to exploit that. Um, and yeah, the goals is going to come from hopefully, maybe potentially a set piece if we get that, or it's going to come from us hitting on the break and using that pace that we have got in transition. So yeah, I expect it to be quite similar to what people think, but I think compared to the first game, a lot more aggressive in the way that we try and pounce on you, a little bit more bravery in the way that we attack, less direct. I mean, look, we'll be direct, but I think a little bit less direct. I think we will try and play if we can. Um, and hopefully, like you say, I think we're both in weird positions. We're in a place, like you said earlier, about goals and expectations. We're in a position where we really need to take advantage of a home game, whoever it is, and you need to sort out your away form to try and close that gap on your late push for the top 6. So 2 teams have got a lot to play for, and I think both teams deep down will be really, really hoping to win the game, which sounds silly because we're 23rd, but we know how important that home games, whoever you are, there's an opportunity to sort of claim those points.
And finally, can I push you for a score prediction?
Yeah, I'm going to say what I've said before. So I have, which again isn't what I've just said. I have gone with a draw. I think if I'm being totally honest, and I don't know if that suits anyone really. Points don't do enough to push you up the table. Points don't do enough in a relegation battle, unfortunately. I mean, it's better than losing, obviously for us. But we do need to start sort of backing up some results. We haven't had back-to-back wins this season, so we do need to do that. I don't think many teams have stayed in this league without getting back-to-back games unless you win, lose, win, lose. If you're going to draw a couple of games in there, you've got to find a way of picking up 3 points back to back. But yeah, I think there could be a draw in this. I'm going to say, I think I've said 2-2, but I'm going to go 1-1. I'm going to give you a different one, but I think I've got a draw, which I don't think Birmingham fans would be happy with whatsoever.
See, I was thinking 2-1 Blues, but after what you've said and the confidence that you've got, I feel like it might be a 2-2 as well because, as you said, I feel like there will be a set piece goal because we've been pretty weak defending them and Stoke scored from one the other day, and I feel like that's somewhere where you could hurt us. But I feel like with the new signings that we've got, I imagine that they will feature, and I reckon Solis will start instead of Doyle, so I could see him making an impact. And I reckon that throughout the game, it will be to and fro, and it may be that both teams settle for a point, even though what you said, like, it just doesn't really suit either of us, does it?
No, it doesn't. I think we need to. I think we'd be happier with the point than you. Um, but we also know we need to win games, and that is important. And we need to prove to ourselves more than anybody that we can go back to back. We can build on a result, and building on results is so important. Which is why, for you guys, your that home draw to Stoke feels disappointing, but you go and back that up with an away win, which hasn't been as frequent for you this season. Suddenly you go, okay, I think we can sort of take that group, and we can look at January a little bit better. Whereas for us, we also know that we want to try and win those because 3 points is huge. 3 points make such a difference, such a difference. But yeah, I think it's going to be a challenging one for hopefully for you, but I think it certainly will be challenging for us, like every game in this league is, right?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your time, Jack. And please just give a shout out to everybody watching and listening what you're up to at the moment because you make some great videos covering Birmingham as well as to the Championship as well.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Yeah, I'm working a lot at the moment. We're doing quite a fair bit on YouTube. You just put Jack Ward in the channels, the Jack Ward Football Podcast. But if you just put my name in, that'll come up. Yeah, lots of stuff on the Championship. The windows allowed us to be a lot more busy. Has allowed us to sort of create a real variety of content. And I've said this again, but I will say it once more. I'm very, very thankful of the Birmingham fans that have supported the channel and supported the content over the course of January. It's been really nice, sort of just having that conversation with people and being a bit informative, I guess, in sort of in sort of players, sorry, that haven't got the same sort of exposure that in the different leagues they've played in. And being able to have those chats with people have been great. So yeah, their support's been fantastic, and I've been nice to Birmingham. And I'm gonna be nice to Birmingham for the rest of the season, just not on Saturday.
Thank you so much for your time, Jack. And as for me, make sure to stay tuned for these match preview shows that are going out every game and also the chats here and there that we have about Birmingham. So like, share, comment, and subscribe, and keep riding.